Hello, in this video I'm going to show you step by step how to make a ruffle top, kid sock or slipper, footy, whatever you want to call it. As you can see, now there is one adjustment I'd like to make. This is actually what I made during the video. So I've actually went through and made another one. I haven't sewed everything in. I actually like it better using, this is the rib stitch that we use for the toe and everything, which you'll see later in the video. I prefer to actually do that for the entire thing because I just did an E-wrap at the top and it's not quite as tight as I would like. It still seems to hold its shape pretty good, but I honestly prefer the rib stitch, and that is what you will see in the PDF if you get the PDF. But the techniques you will need to know is your E-wrap and purl stitch and how to do the chain cast on. Links to all of those are in the description. I will go step by step how to do the heel and how to do the toe. Alright, now how you mark your peg, your loom for this peg, which you'll see the loom marked a few different ways as I go on. This is what I like the best. I am using the 25 peg, 1/2 inch children slipper loom from CINDWOOD Craft. Since it has 25 pegs to it, I'm actually marking 12 pegs for the heels. So here's peg 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm also marking the 2 middle pegs of the heel. This marks which side the heel is, and it also marks because during the rib stitch I'll have to do 2 together somewhere, and this puts it at the back of the heel. There's going to be a slightly flatter spot at the back of the heel, so that blends in. You're never even going to notice it's there. And that's how we mark it. What else you will need is your crochet hook. Well, your crochet hook, your loom hook, a pair of scissors. And that is it, other than your yarn, which of course I'm using. I talk about the yarn a little bit later. The Caron United, because they donate 15 cents of each one to the Children of Fallen Patriots Foundation, which is awesome. And of course our patriotic ruffle yarn. Alright, by itself, or you can purchase it in the 3-piece set. So this is this. Now first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 1 row of the ruffle yarn, and then we will do our cast on with our normal yarn. And what I'm using is the Caron United yarn, just because I figured it was very patriotic. 15 cents of each roll is donated, so I thought that was really a really neat thing. The collar I am using is royal, but a red will look good, or a white too, just to keep with the patriotic theme. And of course this is the Red Heart Boutique Sachet and Patriotic. Okay, now the yarn, you can pull this apart and you'll notice at the top we're just going to be using this one top row of holes. So what I'm going to do, and we're going to skip a hole, so we'll put that one on a peg, then we'll put that one on a peg, then we'll put that one on a peg. I'm starting a few inches down and I'm putting one on a peg. I'm going to skip one, put one, skip one, put one, and this sock is worked inside out. Skip one, put one on. You do this all the way around, back to your starting peg. You're going to have this tail on this side. What I do is pull the tail. This is your working yarn. Pull it behind the tail, and then just run the tail along this, and then even take this edge right here and pull it up too. That will keep all of it hid. At this point you pull all this down. Our tail is on there and hid out of the way. Oops, I got one. Okay, now that that's out of the way, now we do our cast on, which I'm just going to do the chain cast on using 2 strands of yarn, which there are videos to go over how to do the chain cast on if I am doing this too fast for you. got your slip knot behind your first peg, which I'm using the black peg as my reference peg. Pull the slip knot behind. Oops. And pull your working yarn through. You do this all the way around the loom till you get back to your first peg. Alright, now once you get back to your first peg, there we go. You just take the loop, put it on that first peg. That first peg's going to have 2 loops. Push all this down, and that is your cast on. Now this will just go down in the middle. You're going to just ignore it, that's there. Now you're going to take your ruffle yarn again and do 1 row of it. So skip a peg, put it on the, start with your first peg, not skip a peg, skip a loop, and go each peg all the way around. Alright, now back to your first peg. Alright, so you're going to have 3 loops on each peg going right now. You're going to have your initial cast on with the ruffle yarn, then you'll have your actual chain cast on with the regular yarn you're using, and then another row of ruffle yarn. At this point we're going to E-wrap. We're going to E-wrap all the way around with the blue yarn. Just pushing the rest of the yarn out of the way. Have to move that. But we're going to E-wrap all the way around back to peg 1. And of course, if you need tips on, if this is not showing you how to do the E-wrap enough, there are separate videos to show you how to do the E-wrap. Once back at your first peg, you gotta be careful doing this, because now you're going to notice you got your working yarn. You'll have a ruffle yarn and working yarn, ruffle yarn. The working yarn and ruffle yarn we treat as one. This working yarn and ruffle yarn we treat as one. So we want to take that and that over the top peg. Now remember, this was part of my cast on with it, so we're going to have more than one on some of these. But all you want left on the loom when you're done is 1 strand of ruffle yarn, and then your working yarn, which we're doing 2 strands is 1. So do this all the way around back to your first peg. So you push all those down when that's done, and what we're doing is you're going to be doing just 5 rows altogether of your ruffle yarn. So we've already done our cast on row with it, and we've already done a second row with the ruffle yarn. So we've done 2 rows so far. We need to do 3 more rows, which how we do them is just the same as we just did that last row. You take your ruffle yarn, just that second loop, and go all the way around every peg that way, and then you're going to take your working yarn and E-wrap all the way around. For that final row with the ruffle yarn, you go ahead and go all the way around like you have been, but before you do your E-wrap row, go ahead and cut a length of it out for your end, and just keep running it until it's gone. And then we're just going to do the same as we did at the beginning, where you just kind of stick the ends all up on the pegs like that. Nothing specific. That will just hide that out of the way. Now on the inside of the sock you might see a little bit of the string sticking out, but you're not going to have the ruffles coming out, like the loose ends coming out on the outside of the sock. So this is what's going to look like. You can kind of tuck that down in the middle to keep it out of the way, and then you're going to E-wrap over top, and then take, the bottom yarn over the top, and you'll be left with your last ruffle row and your E-wrap row. Now that we've got the ruffle part of the cuff done, we need to do 10 more rows for the cuff, because if we don't, the ruffles, see, we need to make it tall enough to kind of cover these ruffles because it's very long ruffles so that it's not dragging the ground. What I like to do is actually the rib stitch. It's just a single rib stitch, and I will do this all down the front of the footy, and then from the heel on it'll all be E-wraps, so that's going to give you a nice flat bottom to it. Now the thing is, this is a 25 peg loom. So what that means is we're doing a single rib, so it's going to be E-wrap, purl stitch, E-wrap, purl stitch, E-wrap, purl stitch, that pattern all the way around. At some point you're going to have, you know, if you do it like that all the way back here, your last two will be E-wrapped, and then it's going to throw it all off because these edges right here will not be even on both sides of the sock. So to avoid that, what we're going to do is we're going to mark, you might be able to see right here, lighter blue. This section right here is our heel. Heel goes from this blue one to this white one right here. So we're going to count 6 and then mark those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the middle 2 on the back of the heel will be marked. And then see, there's going to be a wider spot there, but these ruffles are going to cover that, and the ruffles give a really stretchy cuff to the sock, and it's just a really nice pattern. I want to show you real quick how to do this, and then we'll just go on from there. So we E-wrap your first peg, which will be the black, then purl stitch. If you need a better tutorial of how to do the purl stitch, there's a link in the description below. Oops. Make sure you have both strands going together. This is a purl stitch. And you got to watch for your marked pegs. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we're at our marked pegs and we're on an E-wrap, so we just E-wrap both of those and you go right back to your pattern. And you do this all the way around. E-wrap one, purl one. The only difference will be the 2 that you mark in the middle of the back of the heel. And you just do this until you get back to the first row, to the black peg right here, until you're back to it, which the one before it will be a purl stitch. And then you'll take all your E-wraps, you'll take the bottom over the top, kind of push it all down, and you're going to do 9 more rows like that. So there'll be 10 rows of this pattern all together when you are done. Alright, so to do your heel, you are going to, you're coming off of your starting peg here, you're going to E-wrap. Well, this one's actually coming the peg before, so we're going to go ahead and E-wrap that peg just for this first time. But then you're going to E-wrap 12 pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're going to E-wrap these 12 pegs. We're counting from white to white. Take the bottom pull over the top for each of them. I'm going to go ahead and do this one too, and then you don't deal with it the rest of the heel. There we go. Now you're going to push those down. You're going to push those down, and now we're going to E-wrap back to that first white peg. Now you can wrap this peg and then wrap, or you can just, since it's in between, you can go. I just wrap that second peg. So this is, we count this as row 2. Just for the heel part, we're going to do 4 rows like this. So we did row 1, which was 1 to 12. Row 2 was 12 back to 1. Then we're going to go row 3 is going to be 1 to 12. Row 4 is going to be 12 back to 1. Got those 4 rows done. This is about what it's going to look like. You're going to see a difference because we're going from the rib stitch to the heel right here. And now we need to decrease just to give that little edge to the heel. How we do this, our working yarn is coming from peg 1, so peg 12, we take the yarn off of it and put on peg 11. You're going to push all these down, push them all down, Then you're going to E-wrap to peg 11. You're going to take, there's going to be 2 loops on it now. You take both of those over top that top one, and then you go ahead and take the rest off all the way back to your peg 1. Oops. Alright, and at this point we take the yarn off peg 1, put it on peg 2, push it down, and now we are going to wrap back from peg 11 to peg 2. We're going to take the yarn off. We're going to continue to decrease like this until we have 3 empty pegs on each side. So let me get this and I'll show you. Okay, right now we have 1. So we're going to take off peg 11, put it on peg 10, and that gives you 2 empty ones. Then we're going to knit back, and then we'll knit up. Well, no. From here we're going to E-wrap all the way down to peg 10 again, but we're only going to peg 10 because there's nothing on peg 11 or 12. Once we're done with this, then we'll take the yarn from peg 2, put it on peg 3, E-wrap down from peg 10 to 9, E-wrap up. You just do that until you have 3 empty ones on this side and 3 empty ones on this side. So we're going to go E-wrap back to this first one, which will be peg 4 at this point. And we're going to take all these off so that all these only have 1 loop left on them, which I was the only one that had extra. And then we're going to push it all down. And now we got to pick up the rest of the heel. Now this is really the trickiest part of this entire pattern. Because you don't want to just pick up and put on these empty pegs, because then you could have gaps. And sometimes it varies just by the way you knit. So you're just going to start picking up. And what you pick up are these loops. So there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. And you want to put it on this peg. That one, that one, that one, and that one. So you're going to be putting on 5 pegs. And you want to make sure you grab both strands. Which it might be, some of them might be a little tight just depending on how you personally knit. Oh, gotta grab both. Okay. Oh. And there we go. I didn't have both of them. Alright, so you grab both, put it on, and you're just going to push that down because this one and this one will have 2 on them, but you're going to treat that as 1. Now we go to the other side and we do the same thing. You pick up the 3 empty ones, but you get the first and that last one too. The one right before it and the one right after it. So you want to get the loop that is closest to this side so that there's no gap. Then you're just going to start picking up the next ones. And then pick up. Yep. You get the lighting so I can see it. Pick up your last one. And there you go. Alright, so this is what it's going to look like once your heel is picked up. Just kind of, you have 2 on that one and 2 on that one. There's going to be 2 on this side. We have that one and that one with 2 on them. Like I said, you'll treat those as 1. Now, from here to the toe, which this is the child size, so we're only going to be doing, this is actually a toddler size, a small child. We're only going to be doing 15 rows before we do our toe. But what we're doing is, we want the bottom of this to be flat. And since we're doing this inside out, we're doing an E-wrap, because inside out this is what it looks like. And then we're going back to our rib stitch, but you want to keep it the same so all this matches up. Okay, so we're going to E-wrap. It's coming from in between these two right here, which is, here's your black. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So between 4 and 5. So we're actually going to take an E-wrap, which 4 right there has the 2 on an E-wrap, 5, 6, and we're E-wrap to that white peg over here, which is peg number 12. At this point, we're going to start back in with our purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, the rib stitch pattern, all the way to the other white peg. So this is a purl stitch. This is an E-wrap, purl stitch, E-wrap. Like I said, do this all the way back to your other white peg, which will be a purl stitch. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a few pegs here that haven't been E-wrapped or anything yet. It's up to you. You can either go ahead and E-wrap back to them and count this as one full row. Or if it's easier for you to look at this white peg here, you can do it either way. I count from this peg just because it's easier for me to keep track of my rows personally. So you're going to see some of these pegs are going to have more than one loop on them. You're going to take all of the pegs. See, this one has 3. All of the pegs has more than one on them and cast all of that off. Alright, so that was your row 1. And we're just going to keep up that pattern from white peg to white peg over here. Your heel part, you're going to E-wrap every single time. Well, starting at the white pegs at the end, which is peg 1 and 12, that is when you're going to start rotating from purl stitch to E-wrap. And you're going to do 15 rows of this all together. And then we will do the toe the same way as you do your heel. What that is, which you may, there are different ways to do your toes, but I'm going to do the toe the same way I did the heel in this sock. So we've got our E-wrap, 12 pegs. So from white peg to white peg, we E-wrap. Which if you're using a different loom and you're doing a toe, the toe is, like I said, the same as your heel. It is half the size of the loom. So this is a 25 peg loom. So I've got 12 pegs here since it's an odd number for my heel. We're going to do 4 rows, just going back and forth from peg 12 back to peg 1. 4 will put you back at peg 1. That's where the yarn's coming from. So we're going to take the yarn on peg 12, move it to peg 11. We're going to push all that down in between. For the entire toe, all we're working on is this part, so ignore the rest of the loom for now. We're going to E-wrap to peg 11. We are not E-wrapping any of these empty pegs. We're not doing anything with them at this point right now. We just have one. This one's going to have 2 loops on it. Take both over the top. And you go back to your first peg. At this point, we take the yarn off of peg 1, put it on peg 2, push it all down, E-wrap, back to peg 2. We do not wrap peg 1. Knit all of these off, take the bottom over the top. Alright, so peg 11, we're going to take the yarn from peg 11, put it on peg 10, push that down, E-wrap to peg 10. Okay, take the yarn from peg 2, put on peg 3, push it down, E-wrap back to peg 3. It's like we got 2 empty on both sides now. Oops, okay. Peg 10 to peg 9. E-wrap back. Yarn off, pull that over. And peg 3 to peg 4. And we're just going to E-wrap back to peg 4. Okay. So this is what the toe looks like. To pick up, do the same way we did the heel. We just grab the loops. Oh, wrong loop. I'll show this up close so you can kind of see. We want to grab the loops kind of going long ways for that first one, because that will kind of pull all that together. We're going to put it on that first peg. We're going to fill in those 3 and we're going to do the last one. So we're putting loops on 5 pegs instead of just 3. From there we just pick up the next ones. Now some of these might be kind of tight and it doesn't have to be exact. If you're having trouble seeing it, you can push your finger up under and you'll see there's one, there's one, there's one. See? There's one. There's one. And then we're going to grab this last one. And that's what it's going to look like. Other side, same thing. You're going to grab that first one, put it over, grab each one after it and put on. Oops. Make sure you get both strands. There we go. There we go. Both strands. Alright, and push that down. Alright, so now we're going to do one row just to get our yarn back to this black peg. So you're going to do it the same way you have been. We're going to E-wrap just from where the yarn's coming. And once we get to this one, we will purl like we did for the whole tube. E-wrap, purl. Okay, go ahead and purl this last white peg. And at this point we can actually cut the yarn. You want to cut it as long as it can wrap around the peg, you know, like once or twice. That'll be fine, because all this is doing is sewing the toe closed. So here we're going to have pegs that have, some will have 2 loops, some will have 3. Just go through the whole loom and make sure every single peg has just one loop left on it. Alright, the entire loom, every peg has just 1 loop left. So now you can sew this with a piece of thread if you want, but with a tapestry needle if you want. I just use my hook. So I take my hook, pull the yarn up through the white peg, take it off. Then I go over to the peg before it, sew it up, take it off, and go to the, peg number 2, sew it through, take it off. Then you're going to go to the one before the black one, which will be, peg 23, and take it off. We're going to zig cross from side to side all the way until we get to our last 2 on there, and you can see where it's kind of starting to sew the toe together. So you're going to take both of those off just the same way you've been doing, and now you're done. We got to tighten up the toe first. Because right now, if you look at it, that's all loose. So watch this. We pull this and all of that tightens up. See, all of it does. So you need to make sure you get it stretched to the right side, as tight as you need it to be. You're going to take your crochet hook and you're just going to weave the yarn kind of in and out for a few. Which, since we ran 2 strands with this pattern, what I'm going to do is I ran both strands together through a couple, and I'm going to run them separate for a couple and then tie them together, knot it off that way. And try not to put the knot right at the edge of the toes, or else it might be, it'll be more noticeable. And it could kind of like irritate their toes a bit, just having it right there. Okay, which I just did it right here on top. Hopefully it'll kind of fall right in the crease. You want to do a box knot, get that in there. Make sure it's really tight. And then just cut it down to the knot itself. And now we have 1 more strand to weave in, which this one is just from our cast one. And this, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just weaving it through a couple and then cutting it, because that one's already tied in pretty good. Okay, before we flip this, kind of pull on the ruffles just a bit, and now it is the time of truth. Flip our sock inside out and see what we got. Now pull all the ruffles over the top. Just pull that so they'll stay. Alright, there you go. So we are all done. Here's our sock. I got my 4-year-old Kiana. She's my model. You can see you got the flat bottom where we flipped it inside out, and you got your rib stitch in your toe, and you got your ruffles. So there you go. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. You can get the PDF, which does have a few alterations in it, through CINDWOOD Crafts, premiumknittinglooms.com. Any questions or comments, please leave in the description below, and thank you for watching.